I was curious. You said that he had written down McConkie the whole process. What does that process look like?
That is a great question. So I'd have to, it's been a while since I read it, but I know that they all, man, I should send you the link and so you could put it in the show notes or something.
Okay.
But I believe they were in the celestial room of the Salt Lake Temple, and the celestial room is the,
Yeah.
it is, yeah. Okay. It's like, that's where, in the Mormon temple rituals, that's like the very last place that you end up, and it's an extremely special place for a lot of Mormons, and it's very sacred. And they were there. Actually,
now I feel bad that I mocked.
Oh no! Don't feel bad at all. Don't feel bad at all. I'm just trying to paint it here. But they also, you know what? They may not have been in the celestial room. They may have been in a room called the Holy of Holies, which is specifically for the Quorum of the 12 Apostles.
That sounds like one you could mock.
Yeah, I was just going to say, oh, that's different. Okay.
Anyway, they were in some very important room in the Salt Lake Temple, and they ended up they were praying together. There were 13 of them rather than 15, which is very interesting because it was actually the two that were absent. One was on a trip for the church, and the other one was in the hospital. And it is speculated, and I don't know that I have any source to back this up other than what historians have told me, that those were the two most racist members of those 15 men. Oh. So they purposely did this vote while they were gone.
What was the vote?
Whether or not to ordain people of color to the priesthood. And to allow them to get married in the temple.
Right?
Mm-hmm, had to be unanimous, yeah. So even if one person voted no, they couldn't do it. And supposedly too, again, this is what I've been told by historians, they had tried to have this vote a number of times before, but because of one of those two, it just never worked out because it was never unanimous, right?
Okay, so they sit and they pray, and
they prayed, and they did.
This blows my mind. Okay,
yeah.
Keep going.
So they prayed, and I believe Spencer W. Kimball, who was the president of the church at the time, even went into a separate room himself and prayed by himself because he's the prophet of God and he's the one that can receive the specific revelation. And then I believe he came out and said, "Yeah, we're going to do it," right, or something like that. And then.
What do they vote down God?
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm not in favor of this.
And I believe I'm going to send you the link so we could be for sure, but I believe they did what's called a prayer circle, which is it's an important ritual within Mormonism in which you pray together in a circle, essentially, right?
Do they have to hold hands? Is it like got to be a connected circle?
You know, so now I'm like second guessing myself of whether or not they did a prayer circle because women have to be present. The same number of women have to be present in a prayer circle as men.
It was a drum.
So I don't know exactly what it was. And there's no women in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. There were no women in the room when they were doing this. So anyway, obviously I'm butchering the story. So I'm going to send it to you.
Yeah,
so that your listeners can call me out on getting it wrong.
I just wonder what I was thinking. You know, you have 13 people, and they're all going to have a lot of different opinions, and it's kind of yay or nay. And if somebody's on the border, they're like, so what's God saying to you? Yeah. You know, I mean, how do they change one another's minds? That has to happen,
I'm
right?
still at the point where I'm like, what is the point of one person going and coming out and being the prophet of God and saying God says we have to do this and having a vote? Like, I don't.
Well, Mormons do that every Sunday. In that, like, so when you are given a what's called a calling or otherwise an assignment within your congregation, or Mormons call it ward. When you're given a calling in your ward, it's supposed to be voted on by your ward. And you stand up and they say, brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so has been called to do this calling. All those in favor, please make it manifest. And everybody raises their right hand. Any opposed, also make it manifest. And anybody, if they are opposed, can raise their hand. I never, my entire life, saw anyone vote opposed. Ever. They do the same thing in General Conference once a year. General Conference is a big meeting that the Mormons hold in Salt Lake City, and they broadcast it to all their members worldwide. All the members of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and the First Presidency speak, and they sustain the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, and they do the same thing. All those in favor make it manifest. All opposed please indicate. And a lot of people have started going and voting opposed at General Conference.
So they had to look that up? Like somebody
Like, what do we do?
And they all just sit there.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know.
so what they do is they invite them, well, not then and there, but after them. Well, in General Conference, they don't do it like that. They just say that the opposition has been noted, but then they still go about their normal business. And in the, I would imagine in a local congregation, they would invite those who voted opposed to come up after the meeting and vote and explain why they vote opposed, right?
Yeah, justify your decision to reject the word of God.
Exactly. Yeah.
What if they, God told me to oppose it?
Yeah.
Like I prayed before the meeting. And
This reminds me of, like, if you've ever been to a tent revival. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I have. It's scary.
And then they have the people speaking in tongues. So they fall out, they're speaking in tongues. It's gibberish. Well, the funny thing is when somebody falls down next to them and starts translating, and then you get the other guy that comes over and they get into an argument about the translation.
Wow. What if the person who translates in tongues?
Well, and then the person,
telephone
and then the person speaking in tongues sits up completely loose and says, "No, that's not what it was."
It's like that barrel.
Then you got a three-way argument going on.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's hilarious. Which that often happens in like Sunday school in Mormon Sunday school, right? Where like, no, somebody's like, no, the doctrine's not that way. It's actually this way. Well, no, I interpret it like this. And it's like, well, isn't that why we're supposed to have like a unified church that can actually clarify this doctrine for us? That I got in so many debates in church.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the whole questioning thing. Yeah, I've done that. I was raised Catholic, and I thought I was going to get married in the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And that meant meeting with the priest. And I asked him some questions, and I wasn't real keen on the answers. Why can't women be priests? And his answer was that just as men cannot bear children, women cannot be priests. And I was like, wait a minute.
So
there's some organ there that I'm...
some organ that
Yeah.
that men have that give them the priesthood.
Yeah. And the other thing was he wanted me to sign a document that said I would remain open to children. And I said, how am I supposed to have a life and do what you're actually asking me to do?
Right.
He's like, well, blah, blah. It's just so much baloney, and that was the end of it. Yeah.